Part 1. Vendredi, samedi et dimanche. Chapter 1. Hector took the mail handed him by his femme de ménage and sorted it. He opened 2 envelopes from magazine publishers in the States and found 2 checks, each made out for several stories. It was enough to carry Hector well through the fall. Not that he was as hard-pressed for money as so many other writers in the quarter. Germaine Lebrun handed him a café au lait, and he sipped it gratefully. She said, "Is it good news?" "It is very good news," Hector said, sipping again and winking. He took out his fountain pen and signed one of the checks over to his landlady and kissed her cheek. "So you won't have to set me out." "You're not even late," she said, touching her cheek where he had kissed it. She was an older woman and stocky, and she had appointed herself his surrogate mother, Hector thought, though she was closer in age to his grandmother, if he still had one. "This will ensure we stay on good footing," he said. He climbed back up to his room, carrying the breakfast tray she had prepared for him. Eggs over easy, toast and bacon, and a cup of yogurt. She'd also added a flask filled with more of the strong coffee Hector favored. He smothered his eggs in salt and pepper and dug in, reading a couple of newspapers while he ate. Hector was startled to see that an acquaintance had been murdered, found stabbed and left propped in a doorway of a vacant shop on the Rue d'Amoussy. Death had come from a single puncture to the heart, probably administered with a long stiletto, according to the report. Hector sipped his coffee, added a little more cream, and sipped it again. There would be no shortage of suspects for the murder, Hector figured. Hell, most of the young writers on the left bank, Hector accepted, had good reason to want Murray Panzer dead. Murray had come to Paris from Greenwich Village in 21, a trust fund intellectual with heady notions of starting a literary magazine. He kept his overhead down by paying his hungry contributors in extra copies of his magazine, in itself not an unusual practice. Paris was lousy with little magazines that did the same, little reviews and chapbook periodicals filled with drivel Hector couldn't read. But Panzer, it had recently been learned, had been reselling his unpaid contributors' stories to other paying publications in Spain and Germany, passing the material off as the work of writers whom Panzer invented pen names for and then pocketed the money. Panzer's subterfuge had been found out by Constance Wright, a poet who'd been traveling with her lover in Berlin, and who had found her own poem featured in Der Querschnitt. But now allegedly the work of a poet named Gwendolen Rochlore. Several of the literary writers and poets of the left bank were bitterly calling for Panzer's head. Ernest Hemingway had not been among those burned, but he could vividly imagine himself having been one of those taken in. Hem had insisted that Hector should join him in a visit across the river to Panzer's apartment on the Rue Coquillière. "We'll knock him back on his ass, Lasso. Get a little money back for ours." "No way," Hector had replied. "And I only write for paying markets, where they find other ways to screw you." Hector was forever taking shots for writing for the crime pulps back home, for whoring, as some other young writers put it. Hector had decided to use it to his advantage for once. "But at least I get paid in currency for my stuff," he'd told Hem. "Well, someone should sure do something about that thieving son of a bitch," Hem had said, frowning. Hector finished with the newspapers. He saw nothing about a body having been pulled from the Seine. He dressed to go out, pulling a cable-knit sweater on over his undershirt, shirt, and the sweatshirt he'd already put on. He shrugged on his big leather jacket with the fleece lining. He pulled on his leather gloves and scooped up his chocolate-brown fedora. It was cold on the street, and exhaust from the cabs roiled in the chilly wind. The snow had hardened and it crunched under Hector's work boots. "Lasso, wait up!" Hector turned and saw Hem running toward him, running with that limping, shambling run of his caused by a weak reconstructed knee. Hem was dressed in layers like